Hi, I'm Larry Richardson and welcome to Zeniors.com Cooking. On this edition we're going to make spaghetti sauce like my mama would have made. In fact, it is the way she made it because it's according to her recipe. It is vegetable rich, it has all sorts of good vitamins in it, and it's tasty to boot. So come on, let's make some sauce. My mother's basic sauce would involve a little bit of the dried Italian seasonings. The brand is totally up to you. 2 cans of crushed tomatoes, and we would have our sweet red pepper, our green bell pepper, some garlic, which actually my mother didn't add, but I'm going to put in it because I love garlic, an onion. We would use either a yellow onion, or in this case I'm using a Vidalia onion, which I just love the sweetness. And I think one of her main secret ingredients was to use a can of Hunt's paste and a can of Contadina tomato paste. My mother would claim that one had a slightly different sweetness to it, and it always seemed to work for me. And the few times that I added just one brand and not the other, I could notice the difference. The sauce would come out a little bit flat. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is open up these cans and pour them into the pan. Now the reason I'm doing this first is so that the tomatoes can start to warm before we add in the vegetables and spices. So this will get everything started ahead of time. Otherwise, if I added all the vegetables and spices after, then they'd probably overcook as the tomatoes heated up. Now this is always a comical moment that I've never mastered. It's forcing the tomatoes paste into the tomato sauce. For some reason, there we go. The cap always ends up falling in. So be ready for that and make sure that your tomato sauce is not really hot when you're adding the paste, because you will have to pull these little caps out. Okay, now that the paste is added, I'm going to add probably about, let's say about 1 teaspoon of the Italian seasoning. Be a little bit judicious with the Italian seasoning. It's a little easier to add a little bit too little and see how it tastes after the sauce has been simmering than to add too much, which you really cannot remove it once you've done it. And I find that a lot of these Italian seasonings are quite strong, and they do add a lot of flavor from very little. So try about a teaspoon to start, and then if you can wait until it's warmed up, everything's starting to get warmed up, then you can decide whether you want to add additional spices to it. Now I'm going to put this pan on at about, I would say, halfway between low and medium so it can start to simmer while we get the vegetables ready. Now when we're chopping the vegetables, we want to make sure to make them nice and clean inside. So I recommend that you chop the vegetables in half first, and then make sure that you get all of the white part and the seeds out, and just set that aside. And then what you want to do is cut the vegetables so they're a little bit chunky. You want the vegetables chunky because you want them to be able to stand up to the sauce. If you make the vegetables chopped too fine, then they're going to just disappear in the tomato sauce, never to be found or tasted again. Now we're going to take the pepper mix and put it into the pan with about a tablespoon of olive oil. Okay, so I did that with the pepper mix mainly to get it out of the way because I need room to slice the onions. Okay, now we have the peppers in the pan, and I looked over and I noticed that the tomato sauce is starting to bubble. Now to save your shirt or whatever clothing you're wearing, be sure to put the cover on the pan at this point, or that tomato sauce will end up on you like hot lava. So it's time to cover it up. Okay, and now we'll slice up the onion. I start by slicing both ends off the onion. And I throw that aside and peel the papery part off the onion until you really start to get to the moist flesh. There we go, and that can all be discarded. And once we do that, we cut down into the onion, again making sure to leave it kind of chunky. I'd say about a 1/4 inch width to each of these furrows. Oops, there's another piece of paper. And then I cut that down into cubes. Now, when you're making the spaghetti sauce yourself, you're going to gradually learn what type of chunkiness you like to the vegetables. Again, in spaghetti sauce, I tend to like them pretty chunky. Some people I've seen make them almost into the tiniest cubes, almost so you can't taste it. Now, again, you saw that I added about a tablespoon of virgin olive oil to the mixture. This is going to keep it kind of greased up as we're sauteing the onion and pepper mix. So I'm turning the stove onto medium, and we'll start stirring this around. Now, the point of sauteing is to seal in the flavor. You don't want to overdo it. You're not trying to brown the mixture. Once you start to see a little bit of clarity to the onions, kind of a translucence to them, that's when it's time to put them into the sauce. It's taken about 5 minutes. Now I notice that the onions are starting to turn clear. So I'm going to turn the heat off and then get ready to add those to the pan of tomato sauce that's been simmering. Now be careful when you take the cover off the tomato sauce. You're about to see why. Tomato sauce is dangerous when it's hot. You can see it's burping and sputtering and making a real mess in the pan, but it will also put hot magma all over you if you're not careful. So now I'm going to stir in the tomato paste that we added earlier and the Italian seasonings. Get those good and stirred in. And I'm going to take our pepper and onion mix and add that into it. Now, doesn't that look delicious? And we're not even through yet. Let's get that all stirred in. Okay, we have that stirred in. Put the cover back on. Leave it again, I would say, halfway between off and medium on your stove. You be the judge. The point is to keep it simmering with a little bit of bubbling going, but not boiling and not just sitting there. If you let it boil, it's going to stick to the bottom of the pan. So after that, now we're going to get the garlic ready. So now what I like to do with garlic is to put it into one of these presses and squeeze it down. That brings out a lot of the oil, and it basically minces it very finely. Now, other people I know like to take practically the whole clove and just throw it right into the tomato sauce. And then there's people who like to slice it. They like to have a little bit of a kind of a small, slicey chunk of garlic in every spoonful. I would also caution you, I like garlic a lot, so I'm going to add this whole head of garlic to my spaghetti sauce. If you're not sure how much you like garlic, then you should probably start out adding about 1/4 of the head to 1/3, and then each time you make this, slowly increase the amount of garlic that you want to add to it. So here we go, we're going to mince up some garlic. Now the beauty of these garlic presses is that you get to press the whole clove inside of this machine, and it will separate out all the paper parts, all the parts that you do not want in your spaghetti sauce. Now this garlic is very resinous and it can be kind of hot. So again, you have to be careful if you're working with garlic and you really don't want it on your hands, then put on a pair of rubber gloves. Now what we're going to do with the garlic is take another tablespoon of our extra virgin olive oil and put it into the pan that we use to saute the peppers and onions. And then we're going to put the pan on medium and add the garlic into the oil. Now the point here is to saute the garlic. It's not to brown it, it's not to overcook it, but what you will find is that the oil picks up a lot of the garlic taste. It becomes infused with it. and that will be more evenly distributed throughout your spaghetti sauce. And I'm looking for a little bit of translucence in the garlic itself, a little bit of clarity, and at that point I'll know it's done. And again, once you start to see a little bit of the garlic brown, absolutely get it off the heat, because you do not want to crisp the garlic. Okay, there we go. I would say that process, the cooking part, probably took about 2 minutes on medium heat. It's starting to really sizzle, so I'm moving that aside. Now, I don't know if you can hear this, but the tomato sauce is really dancing in there, so I'm dropping it down to low heat. It's going down to low, and when I open up the tomato lid, I'm going to make sure to kind of aim it away from me like a shield. Ooh, you can see that. See? It's kind of bouncing around in there. And the whole point of it is I don't want to get hit by it. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is add the garlic to it. Now at this point, it won't hurt to take a spoon and give a clean spoon and take a little bit of a taste of the sauce. Oops. Where's my shield? Now that really is seasoned the way that I like it. It's not too powerful with the Italian seasonings, so you can taste the fresh tomatoes and the vegetables. So what I'm going to do at this point is put the cover back on before I get hit by one of those splatters, leave it on low for about a half an hour, and I will check it about every 5 to 10 minutes, give a little bit of a stir so that the sauce does not stick to the bottom. So there you have it, a nice plate of spaghetti and spaghetti sauce that you made yourself. A very vegetable-rich spaghetti sauce. It's very chunky, it's very spicy, and it has just the right amount of cheese on top. So you pretty much have a meal right there. So there you have it, a very basic spaghetti sauce recipe. Now what you want to do is visit Zeniers.com, get the recipe, make it for yourself, your friends, your family, anyone who wants to try some healthy living, and then please come back to Zeniers.com and post your comments. Let me know, how did you make the sauce better? How did you make the sauce worse? And did anything funny happen? Everybody loves a good funny story. Also visit Zeniers.com in the future because we will have other videos using this basic sauce with extra ingredients that will make it a complete meal. So I'm Larry Richardson, and thank you again from Zeniers.com.